All right, we just talked about this not too long ago on Good Day. A lot of us are in debt, especially in this area. So how do you get out of it? It's not always easy, and more than a third of Americans know exactly what we're talking about. That study I was telling you about, it was put out by the Urban Institute. It was out this week. It shows more than 35% of us have had debt or unpaid bills referred to a collection agency. The weird thing is that number has stayed the same even as people shrink their overall personal debt. So if you find yourself in the red, getting those phone calls, those letters, how do you get yourself out? And how do you ultimately protect your credit score? Chris Bridges is the author of several books on credit management, and Chris joins us with some suggestions. Help us, Chris. Nice to see you again. Welcome to Good Day. This is your first time on the Good Day set, I think, right? So welcome. So what is going on, and what exactly are we talking about when we're talking about your debt being turned over to another party in collections?
So, and first of all, I have to tell you that study also said right here in Washington, D.C., that 40% of Americans that live or reside right here in Washington, D.C. have collections, at least one.
Well, we know. I mean, try to buy a house. It is so expensive. Try to rent in our area. So, yeah, we know.
So what happens is a collection is the result of a debt that's not paid. Typically, an account that may go in default about 180 days can be turned over to a collection. Now, a collection agency can either buy the debt or they can be assigned. Basically, the original creditor hires someone to go collect the debt. But that's what it is. It's an unpaid debt. And sometimes it stays in-house at the original, creditor, or sometimes, again, it goes to an outside or third party that's collecting the debt. But it's basically an account that hasn't been paid for whatever reason and goes into a default.
Is it the same? So if I owe $700 on this credit card, if, Johnny Collections Agency gets it, is it still that same amount then?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and more.
Okay, possibly. And more. That's what I mean. Like, so is it other charges? So, and who knows if it's going into debt? Now, do the big three credit agencies, do they automatically know once you're in collections, you're already starting to really damage your credit report?
Well, once it goes to collection, well, first of all, if it's an account that's already reported on your credit report and it's late, that starts the impact, the negative impact, right? So that late payment gets reported, you're going to have a negative impact to your score. Once it goes into a collection, then that could be a new account that shows up negatively.
So you have the old debt, and now that it's in collections, you got something else too.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Because I think I've broken all the rules in the past because, we've all been in these situations. And I was at the point where quite honestly, I couldn't pay the rent, so I was putting the rent on the credit card. And then you end up with this massive credit card debt so that you don't go to default on the rent. And then you get these statements that say, hey, if you pay the minimum interest, it's going to take you 20, 30 years to pay off your credit card. It's so intimidating. But when you're in that situation, while we may feel helpless, is there a way out of that situation?
Well, absolutely. And actually, there's a law that says that the Fair Credit Reporting Act says that when a collection account goes into collection status, you have 30 days to dispute it. So a lot of times, unfortunately, what we do, because we're maybe in a mindset or we're in a season where it's overwhelming with debt, we ignore. So you get the notices and you ignore it. We have 30 days from the time a collection is we're notified of a collection to actually dispute it or to talk. I would say talk to the creditor. The collection agency is not going anywhere. So ignoring it, unfortunately, is probably going to result in a negative rating or negative reporting on your credit report. So when you get a collection, talk to them. And if it in fact is
the agency or the original, do we talk to Visa or do we talk to Joe's collection agency?
Well, at that point, if you haven't already had a conversation, so this advice is for any negative debt, right? If we know we're having a challenge, reach out and talk. Not answering the phone and hiding is not really the right answer. It's not going away at all. And most likely it will, it'll just perpetuate to something that is worse. So talk to the creditors, talk to the collection agencies. There's a period of time that you might be able to catch it before it actually is reported negatively on your credit report.
What about those bills? And I know this has happened to a lot of people out there. It's happened to my husband that you never even got the medical bills. And this seems to be a big one that perhaps you didn't realize. Somehow the connections get crossed and nobody gets the bill or knows that they have a medical bill. I think it's all taken care of through insurance. And then all of a sudden it's on your credit report. Is there really anything you can do at that point to get it off. But I mean, pay it, obviously. But then what do you do when it comes to your credit score and trying to repair something that you honestly didn't know you had to owe?
Yeah, and that is an unfortunate situation because a lot of times you're thinking it's being paid by the insurance or the copay. So a couple of things here. Number one, I would recommend that everyone is monitoring their credit report. We're entitled to a free credit report once a year, but that's 12 months that you could have had something negative sitting out there, right? So if you are signed up with one of the consumer monitoring services, at least you'll be notified sooner that there's something negative, and you can't help it at that point when it's out there. Medical bills are something that we just have to stay on top of, unfortunately. You typically would have gotten the bill in. A lot of times we assume that the insurance company is going to pay it, so you sort of put it aside
Right.
because you don't pay, they're going to take care of it.
Right.
I would say, again, you're going to have to be proactive in managing your debt and call and confirm that it's being paid and just try and catch it. Because unfortunately, if you pay a collection, once it's already been reported, it doesn't automatically be removed. So it does help the score because it's now paid, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be deleted.
Right.
So it's still going to be out
Well, I'm
there.
glad you mentioned it, Sarah, because I have a couple of those sitting at home right now. I haven't even opened the envelope yet.
Open the
I
envelopes.
think I need to do that, or I'm going to go back into that bad pattern again.
Don't do that.
Chris Bridges is
Thank you.
a credit expert. How can people reach out to you?
Well, my website is Credit with Chris, as
Okay.
well as all the social media. So if anyone wants to connect with me, you can follow
Okay.
me there. We make it simple.
Credit with Chris.
So
got it.
Credit with Chris, spelled C-H-R-I-S.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Okay,
so
may
much.
we all be debt free
Oh, yes.
one day.
Someday.
We shall
Exactly.
overcome, right? Okay.
Still ahead in our next hour here, our video of the day, how two women stuck on a set of train tracks survived an oncoming train. It's-
Girl power for sure. I don't know what
how
this
they
story
did
is
this,
about.
but
I have Fred Smoots in studio, too.
hey,